Buckle up. With about a month and a half until DragonCon, we are about to get into some serious cosplay construction. And I swear this channel isn't turning into just a cosplay space. In fact, today's video could be considered sort of cottagecore inspired, or even an exploration of some new technical sewing skills. But if I'm being fully transparent with you, I just really need to make this outfit. This is book one from the Witch Hat Atelier series, which they're meant to be making an anime for, but I started reading this book and I've just fallen in love with the world building and the characters, and especially the outfits. Today I'm specifically looking to make the school uniform underdress, the one that Tetia is wearing here. I think Tetia is who I want to cosplay in the end, but just having the school uniform gives me a base for a number of characters. And while the dress itself is pretty basic, there is some interesting detail up near the neckline and the chest and shoulder area. So I have a few ideas on how to do that, but let's get the basic dress put together and we'll go from there. To get started, I decided to try out sewist.com, not sponsored or affiliated in any way, but to give myself a base dress as a starting point. I was able to explore and plug in different silhouettes and shapes, which was really helpful since I'm still learning the terms that I need to search in order to find patterns to match my goal. So I got myself something that should be pretty close, and I'm planning to adjust this pattern to even better match the dress in the source material, which means making some adjustments once I get all of these pages cut out and taped together. All right, I have the pattern ready to go. I actually used this pattern in a previous project, though I am blanking right now as to which one. Well, if I remember, I will link to it here. I hope that explains the state that she's in. A little busted, but still usable. Now I need to figure out how I'm going to achieve the banded diamond chest piece and the banded shoulder pieces on the front. But rather than cutting and sewing a bunch of rectangles to sort of patchwork together a piece like this, I instead want to try pin tucking to achieve this banded look. A pin tuck is a decorative sewing technique that involves creating very narrow pleats in fabric that are then stitched down. And so to get these pleated pieces into the exact shapes that we need, we're gonna have to do some math.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, so I think based on the art, I'm going to need 7 bands that we'll say need to be sizing up to an adult, we'll say 1.5 inches wide. And then I'm thinking 1/8 inch pin tucks, which requires 1/4 inch of fabric in order to do the pin tuck. Plus, let's say a 1/2 inch seam allowance just to keep my math easy. And that's going to apply to the center cut as well. So, you know what? Let's not do math. Let's draft it up on some paper. After prepping a few sheets of paper with the mocked up pin tucks and taping the tucks in place with some masking tape, I retraced the relevant chest pieces of the pattern onto these pin tucked pages. Then I cut them out, and after I made sure they did in fact match the original pattern shape, I untucked the pin tucks by cutting along the masking tape, and voila! I had the pieces I needed for the chest. So I'm realizing now that I've spent all this time working on these pin tucks that I prefer the look of the backside of the pin tucks for these pieces. So this is an example of what the pin tucks would look like if they were front facing, if they were on the outside. And then this is what they would look like if they were on the inside, which is basically the same as just patchworking a few rectangular panels together. So I'm kind of feeling like this entire exercise was maybe not worth it, but I got to learn a new skill, so that is fun, neat, and cool. And regardless, I have the pieces ready. I realized that I had to do back pieces. I hadn't really planned for that, but luckily I had plenty of fabric left over, so I made the back pieces as well. And while I was considering at one point cutting up the larger pieces of fabric here for the rest of the dress in order to just attach these pieces, I think I'd rather sew them on top of these pieces so that, one, I don't have to mess up the front panels and back panels of the dress by accidentally cutting them the wrong way. We don't have to worry about that risk. And then two, it's kind of a sheer fabric. You can kind of see through it if the light catches. So I'd rather have a little bit of extra layering going on around the chest area and potentially give this area a little more structure as well. So I'm just going to sort of base these pieces into place before sewing them down and then finally getting to the actual construction of the dress. So let's get to that. I mean, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I've pretty much recovered from the emotional damage of doing this the hard way. Or, I don't know, were the pin tucks the harder way? Had to do more math, had to be more precise, had to specifically mark up lines. So I'm gonna say it's a little more effort to do the pin tucks. Either way, I'm really happy with how this is looking, and I'm really excited to get into the actual construction of the dress. Per the sewist instructions, I did add interfacing to the shoulder seam area for reinforcement there. So to kick off construction, I am going to start by, per the instructions, installing the zipper in the back. This is where things are going to get a little nerve-wracking. I am a little worried about pattern matching on either side and making sure that the lines of these bands do match up really nicely over top of the invisible zipper. Yes, I'm going to have to be very careful. So wish me luck. Okay, so I've sat down to attach the zipper to the center back. I've already gone ahead and ironed out to see where a 1/2 inch seam allowance would be for the zipper to be attached to. And in terms of getting these to line up, I am starting at a little bit of a disadvantage here because when I go to match up the lines as a result of the bands, the first one matches up, the second one I think matches up pretty good, but then we get down to this third one and it's like 3/8 of an inch off. Maybe I don't need to be as precious because I'm not about to go back and reset these because I'm feeling lazy and it's on the back of the piece. And as is universally recognized, the back is not my problem. So maybe I won't be quite as precious when adding the zipper in, but I'll do my best. Well, that's not quite right. But I didn't actually do the whole zipper on this side, so I guess I will redo it. Okay, that's at least better. Kind of splitting the difference a little bit on some of these lines, but I just feel better overall about the placement. So I'm gonna keep moving forward. I've got the zipper fully installed, so I just need to close up the rest of this seam, hide the tail of the zipper, and then we can get back to constructing the rest of the dress. Actually, because I know that I have to have a nice flat seam in the front, I should probably serge these edges before I fully sew this together. So I'm gonna do that first. So I'm sitting down to attach the cuff to the sleeve before I attach the sleeves to the dress, and the pattern instructions said to cut out 2 pieces for the cuffs. However, it seems like I'm gonna need 4 if I want the cuffs to be long enough rather than kind of folded over to this size. Like, I don't think that's quite gonna do it. And maybe I sort of misinterpreted the length that this sleeve cuff was meant to be according to the pattern. But regardless, I think an easy fix in order to get it to be the size that I actually want it to be, I'll just double the pattern. It is a little long.
That's what she said.
I do think it is too long if I just open the cuff up, but I can always trim this down a little bit. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to take the 2 pieces I have cut and turn them into 1 cuff by sewing them outsides facing each other, and maybe trim off one of the edges a little bit so that it gets to be a little bit more of like, I don't know, 3/4 of my forearm. That feels better to me. And then I'll just duplicate this process once I cut out 2 more pieces. I think I'm also going to want to attach fusible interfacing to these cuff pieces as well. I think that that would be a nice little touch of structure to the sleeve. And then I'll also want to measure out additional buttonholes. Yeah, so looking at the manga, you can see that the buttons go down the whole sleeve there. So that should be easy enough. Let's get to work. All right, I miscalculated that. There's like no overlap now. Definitely not enough for the whole cuff. So I'm going to have to recalculate that a little bit. I may try and do more of like a trapezoid shape to elongate this edge that'll be a little further along my arm, because the wrist I think works nicely and has the right amount of overlap. So yeah, I'm gonna measure that out and adjust the pattern to increase this side. Okay, so this still feels off, but I can use it just as a template on my arm to really get this to fit nicely. So assuming I can get this to sit and allow me to tape it.
20 minutes later.
So as you can see with like the angle that's created at the wrist and obviously the overlap here, I'm not getting what I want by using straight lines in this pattern. So I am going to take my pen, and I don't know why I put this on my right hand, but I'm going to try to use my left hand to make a straighter line across here, something that I can then, oh my gosh, this is not going well. Okay, so that, honestly, that's not that bad. That was a pretty straight line. Now I can try with this side. We'll see if we can get a straight line on this side. Okay, well, that's as good as that's gonna be, I think. So now I'm gonna take this off and then recut this pattern piece, which is already absolutely Frankenstein. But as you can see, this has so much more of a curve to it compared to the straight line. So this will definitely help, at least in terms of making this fit my forearm a little bit better. So let's cut it out. Do not perceive me. I just got back from a morning run, and instead of stretching or hydrating, I went straight to my sewing machine and have been trying to figure out how to get the sleeves to attach the way that I know how when it comes to sleeves. I had an epiphany while I was on my run. What I'm going to do is just serge the open edge of the cuff, take the gathers out, and then serge the edge of the sleeve, and then just have that seam there rather than usually you would have it tucked in so that the cuff kind of wraps around the edge of the rest of the sleeve. But in this case, I think what is going to be easiest and what will just break my brain the least will be to have the overlocked seam on the inside of the sleeve. Like, you're not going to see it. So yeah, I think that's how I'm going to do it. Let me show you. What a wild way to explain that exercise, Hannah. Apologies, I did immediately get distracted by prepping the cuffs with buttons and buttonholes, so I didn't actually film the attaching of the sleeves to the cuffs, but it's just a normal seam. Sewing the cuff to the gathered sleeve with right sides facing together, and since I pre-overlocked the edges, I don't have to worry about any fraying on the inside. You sure are right in the way. Do you have something to say? Is that why you're... Okay, so after a little bit of time hand stitching these buttons onto the cuffs, I am now ready to attach them to the sleeves and wrap up the sleeves, which I am very excited about. I did also prep the collar pieces, which I did add fusible interfacing to. So it should be sturdy enough as like a standing collar. So both of these need to be sewn on and then overlocked. And then I need to hem the bottom of the skirt. And that should wrap things up for the apprentice dress. I am heading to an event this weekend called the Cosplay Photo MiniCon. It is basically what the name says. It's going to be a mini convention that is very focused on just cosplay and having photos taken of your cosplay. So I think I'll probably spend the rest of the week working on the wig, and that should get the base layer and the basic version of the cosplay kind of across the finish line. Obviously from there, we're looking at the hat and cloak, but I think that's going to have to be a separate video. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing more of the cosplay build process versus, you know, the more technical sewing stuff I was able to explore through this dress. But yeah, once I attach the cuffs and the collar and hem the dress, then I think I'm gonna call it done, and I'll see you in the reveal at the Cosplay Photo MiniCon. This one makes me really happy. I'm so excited about how this has all come together. I have almost no notes on the construction here. I'm genuinely so proud of myself for how this has all come together. Unfortunately, I am having to re-record this talking head. The like project reveal footage I got at the Cosplay MiniCon, it just didn't turn out. The lighting was too rough. Even there I had like forgotten to plug in my mic, so I'm just re-recording it. So apologies if I'm a little scatterbrained, but genuinely I'm just so happy with how this turned out. The fabric covered buttons are absolutely my favorite detail, followed so closely by the pintuck detail as well. I'm like really proud of the way I was able to figure it out in a way that worked for me. I don't know if that's the recommended method, but it worked for me. And if you find it helpful too, let me know in the comments. I think the only thing I didn't nail, but don't necessarily need to nail, is the back of the collar, which I just didn't make long enough. I didn't make any adjustments to the neck, so I don't know why the collar wasn't long enough, but because I attached it relatively easily, I should be able to fix that pretty quickly if I wanted to. But with the rest of the cosplay, yes, I have a little sneak peek here. I really don't need to have the collar in any which way, any Witch Hat Atelier way. That's a bit of a stretch. I'll walk it back. But yes, once I have the full cosplay on, the collar's covered, and the only, I mean, honestly, even putting in the work for these details, you could argue is not necessary, but I am really happy that I put the time in. And because I'm so happy with the rest of the dress, I probably will go ahead and put the time in to fix the collar, because honestly, then it'll pretty much be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I think the only other slight tweak I would make here, if I were to really be a perfectionist, is to adjust the skirt to be more of like a circle skirt, somewhere between half circle to a circle skirt, versus kind of the like more volume added at the side seams, but not the front. Likely not something I'm going to do, just because, again, most of the dress is covered up by the rest of the cosplay, which I'm so excited to share with you. I think I have enough footage from the absolute scramble that was putting together this cloak to make a proper YouTube video, so keep an eye out. I'll also have a little recap of the actual photo MiniCon, which was such a blast, and I met a lot of really cool photographers and got to kind of like network really locally for me, which was just so fun. Already looking forward to next year's. As for the apprentice dress, I am just tickled pink. This has really come together exactly how I planned for it to, except for the collar. And I just had a lot of fun puzzling things out, learning this new pin tucking technique and figuring out the best way to sort of apply it to this situation. And I had a blast. And if you had as much fun as I did, it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in 2 weeks for my next video. Take care.